Hello everyone, this is Satyaprakash. Welcome to my channel. This is part 15 of Web API. In this video, we will discuss how to create custom method names in an ASP.NET Web API controller, or what are the attributes there which map to HTTP verbs that is get, put, post, and delete. So before going through this part 15, please visit my part 14 of Web API, that is what is media type formatters in ASP.NET Web API, and what is the how to manage content type in Web API config file. You can get this video in my playlist called ASP.NET Web API tutorial. Okay, so in this video what we will discuss is what are the attributes there which are used to map custom named methods, and how to verify request and response using Swagger UI with these attributes, and what is an attribute. Alright, okay, so I'll go to my Visual Studio. Here you can get, I already have discussed this HTTP verbs and methods, that is get with id parameter, post verb, delete verb, and put verb, or methods you can say. I already have described this functionality of each and every method in my previous videos. So here let's understand the default convention used by the ASP.NET Web API to map HTTP verbs, that is get and put, post, and delete to methods in a controller. By default, the HTTP verb get is mapped to a method in a controller that has the name called get, right? Or starts with the word is called get. In the following this controller, that is employee controller, the method is named get method, so by convention this is mapped to the HTTP verb called get. The same way post HTTP verb is mapped to post method, that is HTTP verb, right? So, and put method is mapped to the HTTP verb, that is put, and like this the delete method is mapped to HTTP verb called delete, and put method is mapped to HTTP verb, that is put. So here you can say is, even if you rename it, I will take an example of get method. So if you rename it to get employees or get something, right, it also mapped to the HTTP verb called get. As long as the name of the method is prefixed with the word get, it will map to the get method, or HTTP verb is get, because it starts with the get. Same way, if you start with post, it maps to post method. If it is starts with delete, it maps to the HTTP delete verb. If it starts with put, then it will be mapped to HTTP put verb. So the word get is case sensitive, like every method is case sensitive, right? It can be lowercase, uppercase, or a mix of both. So, alright, so here is, I'll show an example is, for example, it has the get details. I just renamed to get emp details, and here the id is get emp id. Okay, get emp date id, and post I'll mention here as post emp, and delete emp I'll mention here as dt and dt, and put is emp dt. So that means each and every method starts with each HTTP verb in HTTP verbs, right? So get starts with HTTP verb get, and here is get, and for post it starts with post, delete starts with delete, put it starts with put. That means it will perform its own operations. Even it will not affect the functionalities, because each and every function or methods has been started with respective HTTP verb, or it starts with the prefix, right, for own HTTP verbs. So after doing these changes, I need to build my solution. So build is succeeded. I need to run my application here. So guys, I will map to my Swagger. So click enter. Expand my employee controller, and we'll check each and every method after modifying the method names, right? So here first I'll check for get method, and I'll click on try it out. So guys, you can see in the response body I got all the employee details, right? So next method I'll check for get of employee ID. So here in ID text box I will pass some ID parameter value, that is I want to display the whose ID is 1. So here I get the response, right, for ID 1. And I'll check for post method, and here I will insert the new employee records. So here I'll type here is Mohandas, and gender is male, salary is 12,300. Alright, so click on try it out. So here new employee is created with ID 27. So I'll check for put method. I want to update the employee details whose ID is 27. So here what I'll do is I will change to Mohan 1, Das to Das 1, and here male. I don't want to change any gender here, and 12,300 was there, I want to 12,400. So here employee with ID 27 is updated successfully. It's first name, last name, salary, and I want to delete this employee using the delete method. So here in ID I want to pass age 27, and click here try it out. So employee with ID 27 is deleted. So to check it, I need to go for get of employee ID, and here I'll check 27, click here try it out. You can say employee with ID 27 is not found. So all the methods is working properly, even with rename the each and every methods. So second scenario I'll do here is so guys, here I already have told you the word of each and every method starts with get. For post is post, delete for delete is delete, and for put is put. So each word of letter starts with uppercase, right? So it is case sensitive. You can put in lowercase, uppercase, or both or a mix or both. It will not affect its method or its functionalities. So second scenario is if the method is not named get, or it does not start with the word get, or for post it does not start with post, or for delete it does not start with delete, or for put if it does not start with put, then how to handle it, right? So if it does not start with own respective HTTP verb, then web API does not know the method name to which the get request must be mapped, and the request fails with an error message, right? So what we'll do here is we have to rename the each method to something different. So when we issue a request for get, post or put or post method, the request will fail because ASP.NET Web API does not know it has to map the get request or put, post or delete to this method. So here I'll do here is instead of a get, I'll mention here load emp details and load emp date id, and here create emp date, and instead of I'll mention here remove, and instead of put I'll mention here update, right? So you can see each and every method is not starts with own respective HTTP verb, right? For get it starts with load, for post it starts with create, for delete it starts with remove, for put it starts with update, right? So with these changes I need to run my application. So before that I want to build my solution. So guys, here I want to issue a get request. So we'll check whether it will provide the response or not. So map to my employee controller. So by default it maps to get method. So click enter. So guys, here you can see that when we issue a get request, the request is failed, right? Because here web API doesn't know it has to map get request to this method, because my method starts with load emp details, right? So same way, if you map to the ID, that is the load emp date ID, then it will get the some error code, right? So the error is the request resources does not support HTTP method get, right? So this is the error because ASP.NET is fails to get the issue a get request, right? So because it does not know that whether it maps to the get request to this method or not. Alright, so in this scenario what we'll do is I want to close my browser. So to fix these issues, in what we will do is we need to we'll instruct the web API to map HTTP verb get to load emp details method, right? So to do this, to decorate the method with HTTP get attribute. So for get method we'll map to HTTP get attribute, right? So here what I'll do is we have two HTTP get verb, so HTTP methods we map to two HTTP get attribute, and for post we need to map to HTTP post. Here is post, right? And for put I want to mention here as HTTP put, and for delete we want to map to the HTTP delete. Alright, So this is the attribute, right? We need to mention here. To map to is its respective HTTP verbs. That is, HTTP get maps to get HTTP verb, and same way HTTP get also map to HTTP verb get with emp id. HTTP post maps to post method. HTTP delete maps to HTTP post method or post verb, and HTTP put maps to put method or HTTP verb, that is put, and HTTP delete maps to the delete method or delete HTTP verb. So we'll go to details about this this attributes. So what we'll do is I need to check the HTTP get attribute. So right click on it, go to definitions. So guys, here you can see this HTTP get attribute has its class. It is a sealed class called HTTP get attribute, and it derives from attribute class. So attribute class is nothing but it is a base class, right? So here I'll show you that, as you can see, attribute is a base class or abstract class. So same way we'll check for post method. So post method has its own post attribute has its own class, that is HTTP post attribute, and derives from attribute base class. So for HTTP delete attribute, it has its own class called HTTP delete attribute, and it is derived from attribute base class. And for HTTP put attribute, it has its own HTTP put attribute sealed class, and it derives from attribute base class or abstract class. So you notice guys, each and every attribute has its own class, and it comes under the namespace is system.web.http namespace, and each method has its own constructor, HTTP put attribute or HTTP get attribute, HTTP post attribute or HTTP delete attribute, right? So it means it initializes a new instance of this class, that's HTTP put attribute class. So for HTTP put attribute constructor, it initializes new instance of system.web.http put attribute class, right? So this is the understanding about what is the attribute, and each attribute comes from which class and its constructor, and it comes under which namespace. So we have this namespace, right, using system.web.http namespace. Without it we cannot access these attributes. Alright, so by doing this we need to build my solution. And run my application here. So guys, I'll go to Swagger UI. And expand the employee controller, and we'll check each and every method. So see guys, here even we rename the load emp details instead of get method, we can get here the each and every method starts with own HTTP verb, right? So I'll check for get method and click here, try it out. So here I got all the list of employee details. So we'll check next for get up emp id. So I want to check for id is 1, try it out. So I got the employee ID whose ID is 1, and I'll check for post method. So here I'll create a new employee. So name is Ramesh, and last name is Mahanti, and gender is male, and salary is 32,000. So my new employee record is created whose ID is 28. So I'll check the put HTTP verb. So I want to update the employee details whose ID is 28, and here instead of Ramesh I want to Ramesh 1. Instead of Mahanti I want to update to Mahanti 1, and instead of gender I want to check here female, and 34,000 instead of 43,000. Click here, try it out. So my employee data is updated whose ID is 28, right? You can see here in response body, and I want to check for HTTP delete verb. So I want to delete ID 28, so click try it out. So my employee record is deleted whose ID is 28. So I'll check for get of employee ID. So I'll pass here 28 ID, click here, try it out. So this 28 ID is deleted, so that I got the message employee ID 28 is not found. So guys, each and every method is operated successfully with its own attribute. So there is no error I am getting even without rename the each and every methods. So close my browser here. So I'll tell you one more details guys. Here is attributes that are used to map our custom named methods in the controller class to get, post, put and delete HTTP verbs. So the attribute HTTP verb map to HTTP maps to HTTP verb, that is get, and HTTP post map to HTTP verb, that is post, and HTTP delete attribute maps to HTTP verb called delete, and HTTP put attribute maps to HTTP verb, that is put, right? So in a real-time scenario you can get this type of implementation. So no one is implementing like for get is get, post is put, put is put, delete is delete. No, they just rename its naming convention like load employee or retrieve employee details, and they have decorated with each attribute called HTTP get, and same way they are implementing in the for other method, other methods or other HTTP verbs in web API. So we can easily identify by taking attribute, so what it defines and what it corresponds to HTTP verbs. Okay, so I'll go to my presentation. So attributes are used to map custom named methods, that is HTTP get attribute maps to HTTP verb get, HTTP post attribute maps to HTTP verb post, HTTP put attribute maps to HTTP verb put, HTTP delete attribute maps to HTTP verb delete. What is an attribute? Attribute is an abstract class or base class. So HTTP attribute has a class named HTTP get attribute, HTTP post attribute has a class named HTTP post attribute, HTTP put attribute has class named HTTP put attribute, HTTP delete attribute has class named HTTP delete attribute. These are all sealed classes, so which are found under namespace system.web.http namespace. So these sealed classes are derived from abstract class called attribute. So in this video what we have learned today is what are the attributes used to map custom named methods, and after modifying the code using attribute, how to check the request and response using Swagger UI, and what is an attribute. So that's it for today guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.